Hi everyone. So my question this week is going to be coming out of the Understanding Behaviorism book. So it just the section I'm going to be talking about is the social reinforcement and punishment. So it kind of talks about how in every culture certain actions are reinforced or punished by members of the group, such as the child's obedience, how they're behaving, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate in the culture, and how the customs of the culture are socially reinforced and punished depending on the important practice of the culture. However, a lot of these are culture is based on imitation, but there's the operant piece of behavior, and that's just teaching itself, and is reinforced, and usually is reinforced by others who are around them, or people within the culture. So it goes in and talks about how Skinner regarded social reinforcement and how it's one of the most important pieces whenever it comes to human culture. And he kind of in the book it says that he used the word practice should refer to the relations of social reinforcement and the person's behavior, because the social reinforcement he says that shapes the behavior and that is normal for the culture. So, however, he says since the behaviors result from the reinforcement relations, the relations are more basic than the behavior. So I feel like in this piece, he kind of talks about the relations with the behavior and with the culture just become part of the behavior, because it all just becomes one, and that's why people behave the way they do with certain cultures. Also, culture is known to be as the practice of reinforcement and punishment. So the example he gave were whether cousins marry or would be secondary. So whether proposal of marriages between cousins were reinforced or punishment would be primary. So when they threw that out there, that kind of threw me a loop. I kind of got confused what they meant by what would be secondary, what would be primary. So if someone could maybe give me a little bit of explanation when it came to that, or came to that piece, that would be great, because it kind of just threw me, and I just wasn't sure what he meant by that. So that's one question I have. And then the other thing is that Skinner also positioned two main implications. So the first rule, so he first says that it rules out imitation, only cultures, and limits the possibility of culture in non-species. And then, so this would mean that people, by imitation, a child learns how to wash dishes because that's just part of what they do. They help the parent wash the dishes every single night, and that's just imitation and practicing it over and over. Second, Skinner's view shifts from focus away from the difficult possibilities, unanswered questions, and then how many group members would behave a certain way before the behavior is characteristic or normal for the culture. So the example that he gave was that if a group of kids or a certain group behave a certain way, that not all of them, they know what the behavior is, but not all of them behave that way. Eventually, the kids who are not behaving the way the culture should be behaving, they'll eventually learn. That's kind of how I took that piece, that section of the book, and I feel like that relates to a lot of different things. So for example, this came to my mind. So when a student goes to a new new school, for let's say a child's transitioning from 5th grade to middle school, the culture is completely different, the environment's completely different than it was in 5th grade compared to what a middle school looks like. So eventually, even though they might not know how to behave a certain way, they're going to eventually learn, because everyone else is doing it, even though they don't know how the system works. I feel like there might be some imitation in there as well, But with that example, I feel like Skinner is talking about you eventually learn how to behave a certain way due to the environment and what's around and what's being reinforced. So if kids are walking the hallway a certain direction, you're going to be more likely to walk the same direction as everyone else rather than the other way. So my question comes to how are we able to help our families in our field? How are we able to help our families understand that, sometimes it can take a while for a child to learn these new behaviors, but also how do behavior analysts just use this in everyday life in their field, and what do we do to kind of explain and do this daily? All right, thanks.